Which five-star LSU signee is already turning heads before spring practice even begins? You'll hear it next. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you for that. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in this episode. A lot of football talk today. We did have a chance to visit with Shea Dixon from On3 the Bengal Tiger, our weekly visit with Shea. And I did ask him about Bo Bentley, the top 10 quarterback in the country for 2026, who has an official visit planned to LSU. You'll hear Shea's thoughts there. The dead period is over with spring practice beginning. You will hear Brian Kelly and the staff's recruiting strategy this spring. That's all coming up. But of course, with the Tigers hitting the practice field on Saturday for the first time, we're going to get a chance. No, Saturday, there's no media availability, but we will get a chance throughout spring to put eyes on a lot of these incoming freshmen, early enrollees for the first time. And that includes some of these five stars. We've already talked a good bit about DJ Pickett. The number one cornerback in the country from Florida came in, participated in bowl practice, although he didn't play in the bowl game, went through bowl practice. And that's a guy that I think most people agree will be on the field on LSU's first defensive series of the season against Clemson. I understand that's on the road. That's against Clemson, which will likely be a preseason top 10 team. They were a playoff team this past year. But look at what you had at cornerback in 2024. You were inefficient there. Now, you got Zy Alexander back off the torn ACL, and as the season went along and he got healthier, it was better. But, Ashton Stamps is a guy that's still growing up, going into his third year. But everything else, P.J. Woodland will be a sophomore next year. You brought in Jakeem Jackson from Florida, but a guy who's been injured the past couple of seasons. High ceiling, but is he healthy enough to play and ready to play? A lot of those question marks surround those guys. Mansour Delane, a guy who could play corner or safety. We'll see the Virginia Tech transfer. We'll see where he settles. But the point is, there's very likely going to be a scenario, if it's not the first play of the game, where DJ Pickett's going to be on the field. Harlem Berry is another one. Five-star, number one running back in the country. Not only his ability to run, but one of the things that really stood out about Harlem Berry throughout the recruiting process and his high school career was his ability to catch. We talked about the 7-on-7 team he played down in Orlando, Ryan Clark's 7-on-7 team, where the quarterback, fortunately, was Bryce Underwood. And we were just salivating over the possibility of those two playing together in Baton Rouge. Now, that's not going to happen, but Harlem Berry is going to play. We know that. The interesting one that Shea Dixon mentioned was the other five-star, the newly minted five-star from On3, Karius Kern, the big offensive lineman from Arkansas. And when you look at the spots available, it's not hard to see how if a young guy makes a big move early, he could have an opportunity to play early in 2025.
I'm really watching Karius Kern because whether it's right guard, right tackle, I think that those are two spots that seem open for competition, and they've got really good depth, but he'll put himself right into the mix because he's been here already. They've said he was done well, and now he'll get 15 practices under his belt. And mind you, this is an offensive lineman who doesn't need to add weight. He's not skinny. He's already 300 whatever pounds, but is doing front flips, back flips. Charles Power, our national director of scouting, said he's the most athletic testing-wise, not talking about backflips and all that, that counts, but testing-wise combined with film, the most athletic offensive lineman he's scouted in recent years. So they are getting a really, really good player there, and where kind of Brad Davis just keeps on going in terms of how much talent he's brought in and stacked up. And look, you lose Zaylon Third, and a year later, no one's even talking about it between portal and how well they recruit that position.
Shay, do we know if Kern's a guy that could potentially play tackle, or is he a guard?
I think he could play tackle. Look, I think right now, and we'll see what all they do in spring, Matt, but that Tyree Adams, who I think people forget, Tyree Adams was a top 100 player coming out of high school. So he just had to wait his turn behind Will Campbell, who happened to be the best left tackle out there, going to be the first lineman picked. So Tyree Adams, if you just say, hey, look, maybe that'll be your first team guy to start out spring, right tackle doesn't have that same answer. I think they're going to try a number of guys there. And look, Weston Davis was a 5-star. He had to wait behind Emory Jones. He'll get a shot. And then you've got Kern, who I think at right guard or tackle is kind of what I've heard. That look, not one of those things where it's like LSU fans are, pulling the car over and screaming and quit cross training these guys. It's the O-line. Guys get hurt. This is what you do. Even more so when you're saying we want a starting 5 and we're trying to find the 5 best. So I think Kern fits himself into that battle of we'll see him get reps at right guard and right tackle this spring.
Boy, if Kern settles in at tackle, that would be a fascinating development. He is listed by LSU on the roster at 6'5", 335. You don't typically see tackles with that build. Will Campbell, for example, went to the combine and I'm looking up his combine measurements. He was 6'6", 319. 6'6", 319. So you're talking about Kern being an inch shorter and about 15 pounds heavier than Will Campbell. That leads you to believe he'd be more of an interior road grader. But, I mean, this is a guy where you're doing like round-offs and backflips. And, I mean, he is an athletic dude who could get out there in space. And it's more interesting because really when you talk to LSU's coaches, they want Josh Thompson, the Northwestern transfer, to play right guard. Now, Josh Thompson, as a junior at Northwestern, I should say he's got an extra year of eligibility, but 2 seasons ago at Northwestern, played tackle. Last year, played guard. Kicked out and played tackle out of necessity for a couple of games and went back to guard. They want him to play guard, but you got to have options to tackle. And if you don't, it could be a situation like we just saw in the bowl game, where Miles Frazier, who spent his whole career at LSU at guard because you had Will Campbell and Emory Jones at tackle, all of a sudden those guys were gone. Well, they took Frazier and said, hey, go play tackle. And it may be where you just need the veteran guy out there. But that's all contingent upon having somebody or bodies win the tackle jobs. Now, Tyree Adams is going to get the first crack at left tackle. Weston Davis was a 5-star. You heard Shea say that. But if either of those guys falter, I had a listener mention to me, Ethan Callaway. Said, why no mention of Ethan Callaway? Candidly, we saw Ethan Callaway in fall camp last year. He didn't do well. Callaway and Ori Williams, 2 guys who just are not ready. So if there's one young guy that you're looking that could potentially step up and steal a job, it's Cohen Eccles at center. But Braylon Moore is there. So you brought in Braylon Moore. He's going to start at center. So could Eccles play guard? Maybe. But remember, you got guys like DJ Chester. And although Chester was playing out of position at center, he started 13 games. He's a very natural guy. Paul Mabinga, over the final month of the season, filling in for Dellinger. We looked at his PFF grades. Every single week, his PFF grades got better. Starting with the Alabama game, every week through the end of the season, his PFF grade got better. So you got options. What you don't have necessarily right now are answers. Like, I'm certain Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson are going to be starters. Everything else feels like it's a giant question. And if Karius Kern can come in and play, Brian Kelly's already shown you with Campbell and Jones. If you can come in and you're the best guy and you can play, even on the offensive line, you'll play. And so there might be an opportunity. Again, it's one of the giant benefits of having these guys here early, having these guys here for spring. You get 15 practices to look at them, to have them go against their defensive counterparts, to get them in your system, your nutrition program, your weight training program, to get acclimated. So when you get the fall camp, it's not all new for them in green. They've been through it before. By the time you get to the games, it almost feels like, they have been here almost a year already. So massive opportunity for Karius Kern. Now, a big part of spring ball as well is not just the current guys, but the future guys. The dead period is over. And so Brian Kelly and his staff now are starting to recruit, and Shea Dixon gives us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on how Kelly and his staff plan on handling recruiting during this spring period. That's next. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From the top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week are the Houston Cougars. There is no team in college basketball that more capably embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the second straight season. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say, go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what the Houston Cougars have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. So with LSU set to hit the practice field on Saturday for the first time here in spring, the dead period is over. And one thing we became accustomed to seeing is recruits on campus for LSU practices here under Brian Kelly. Shea Dixon talked about what the LSU coaching staff's recruiting strategy is now that the dead period is over and spring's about to begin.
Now that spring practices are set to start, that's the Brian Kelly and this kind of staff, Frank Wilson and them's MO is get guys in for as many spring practices as possible. And we saw it last year. Media gets to go out and watch, and there wasn't a practice when, there wasn't a handful of recruits out there. And I think the goal right now, we know very much in Louisiana who they're after, the Lamar Browns, the Blaine Bradfords, the other guys who, Jabari Mack at Destrehan, the receiver, like they've got guys committed. People who are into recruiting you now have a good feel for, okay, they've got 10 or 11, 12 Louisiana guys they're after. I think this month and next month brings answers to the out-of-state guys and who they're really going to wind up getting and really being in the mix with, because combination of the NIL era and just the reality that you're turning the page to a new cycle, this is when you start to figure things out. And I can remember one of the very first spring practices a year ago, Solomon Thomas and Kerry and Kern were out there together, and Thomas committed to Florida State and Kern was committed to Arkansas, and it was like, interesting. Brad Davis has got a couple of these guys out here, even though they're on board with other schools, and now both those guys are at LSU. So I think this is kind of when you start to look at who's visiting, and as I say, watch what they do, not what they say quite often, and recruiting pays off. And if guys are on campus a good bit, that shows that the interest is sincere. So we'll see Saturday starting then of kind of guys who shows up at different campuses, and I think the next month will paint a pretty clear picture of who the top targets are.
Do you think we'll start to see commitments happen during spring football?
For sure. There's going to be a wave of guys who commit even before they make those official visits because, look, they've already got a handful of commits who will make official visits later. And I say that because a number of players have said, Lamar Brown, let's say, for example, has laid out an official visit schedule and said, I'm going to LSU and these schools, and then when that's over with, at the end of June, I'm going to settle in and get ready to make a commitment before my senior year. And that's kind of been the plan for a lot of guys. Now there's going to be others who just go ahead and commit and get it done with. And I think the March and April during spring ball is when we'll see a good bit of that happen. So I'd be shocked if they don't land 3, 4, 5 commits over the next couple of months, and then kind of see where things go heading into those OVs in June.
Okay. 3, 4, 5 over the next couple of months. Do some math with me here, okay? I'm not trying to bore you with math and numbers, but just follow me here, okay? So LSU presently has 6 commitments for the 2026 class. There's all the guys that we know LSU wants. Lamar Brown, Blaine Bradford, Jabari Mack, Darius McKinley, Dom McKinley's little brother, is also an LSU target who is thought to be a pretty heavy LSU lean at this point. I'm just talking about the in-state guys here as well. Dylan Berryman is the 8th best player in the state of Louisiana, defensive lineman out of Ouachita. He's according to On3, a 98% LSU lean. So just follow me here, okay? Get the 6 commits: Brown, Bradford, Mack, McKinley, Berryman. That's 11 right there. If you get all those guys, right? And they're all thought to be LSU leans, and if you get them. Shea just told you that he's expecting 3 to 4 commits. 3, 4, he said like 3, 4, 5. Or let's just even go conservatively. 3, maybe 4. That puts you at 14 to 15 commitments for the 2026 class. Now, one thing that is going to be fascinating to watch is how the LSU coaching staff approaches the numbers this year, because this is an evolution, okay? In 2025, just when you look at the LSU class and how this all came together for LSU in 2025, you saw them go add 17 guys out of the transfer portal. But look at the high school class. So the high school class, there were 23 commits. 23 out of the high school class. What you're seeing now, go back to 2024. You had 29 high school commits. Following me here? In 2023, you had 27 high school commits. Now, Brian Kelly's first class, there were 15, but again, that was never going to be it. It was a modified class because he had just come in. But they went 27, 29. What are they going to do this year? Because what you've seen is they were very intentionally lowering the number of transfers, increasing the number of high school kids they took. And Brian Kelly said that's not what they wanted to do. They wanted to, they didn't want to take 17 transfers. They wanted to build through the high school ranks, supplement in the portal. Well, 17 guys out of the portal this year is not what they wanted to do, but they needed to do it. And a part of the reason you need to do that is because the high school guys you sign aren't staying 3, 4, 5 years by and large. You're losing a quarter of your roster every year. So you go sign 30 high school guys, and a quarter of them leave after the first year, another quarter. By the time you get through 2 years and you're ready for these guys to contribute, half the class is gone. So you look and say, why don't we just cut that number in half? And I'm telling you, there's scuttle that I've had conversations at LSU and other places around the country where they're having that same conversation going, should we sign 30 high school guys? Or should we sign 15 high school guys and then go sign 15 to 20 portal guys? And that's how you build your class. And I think that's what LSU is going to do. So they're at 6 commits right now. Brown, Bradford, Matt, McKinley, Berryman. That's another 5 that puts you at 11. If they go get 3, 4, and Shea said the focus would be the out-of-state guys. Go get 3 or 4 here over the next couple of months. That puts you around 15. And you're almost done. I'm not saying you're done. I'm not saying it's exactly how the numbers are going to go. But I'm just telling you, I do not expect LSU to sign 29, 27 high school guys. This year they signed 23 and 17 portal guys. I think it looks more like that and probably lower high school numbers even than 23. I think it's closer to 15, 16, 17 high school guys than 23, 24, 25 high school guys. So you may have this class close to wrapped up by the time you get to June. Just something worth following. Now, they do need help at quarterback. And a top 10 quarterback is taking an official visit to LSU. Shea will tell you about him when we wrap up Locked on LSU, your team every day. One of the major drawbacks of the many major drawbacks to the Bryce Underwood saga and Underwood flipping to Michigan is not only did it cost you your quarterback signee for the class of 2025 and a guy that you really anticipated was going to be your starter in 26 and 27 and provide a bridge to hopefully a guy like Elijah Haven in 28 and 29, it messed up your quarterback plan. You ended up not signing a high school quarterback in 2025 because you had Underwood committed for so long. You couldn't get in on anybody. But the residual effect of a guy like Underwood, who's so talented and considered so transcendent and sort of generational, which I know is overused, but you understand what I mean, is a lot of guys for the 2026 class weren't looking at LSU because they saw Bryce Underwood. And they're like, I'll go somewhere else because I'm just going to sit for 2 years behind that guy. I'm not even going to have a chance to play until 2028, maybe. So not only did LSU not have anyone else on the radar for 2025, they're really behind the 8 ball for 2026 at quarterback. So they got a lot of ground to make up here at the most important position on the field if, in fact, they want to go sign an elite high school quarterback for 2026. Well, about a week ago here on the show, and if you're an everydayer, you caught this episode, so thank you for that. If you're not, you should be an everydayer. But we talked about Bo Bentley. That's B-O-W-E, Bo Bentley, who is out of the state of Texas, and he is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He's a top 10 quarterback in the country for the 2026 class. The On3 composite has him as the number 91 overall player, the 9th best quarterback. He is ranked as high as 46th overall in the country by On3, the 5th best quarterback in the country, according to On3. So this is a high-level prospect. This is a guy that's 6'1", 200 pounds, out of a football power in Texas. And Bo Bentley announced last week that he is, in fact, going to be taking an official visit to LSU, signaling that the Tigers, sans Bryce Underwood, are very much in the mix for a top 10 quarterback.
Unfortunately for Sloan, I think that Sloan does do a very good job of identifying guys early and getting on them and, having a relationship. And he kept one. He had one and kept one with a lot of these 26 guys, even knowing, hey, look, we're probably not going to be able to get back-to-back, top 5 quarterbacks if Underwood's coming. There's the reality that kids are going to probably want to go somewhere else and get on the field a little bit more quickly. But he was on sleepers as well, right? I was saying, hey, look, even if he does come, here's a guy that could follow him that nobody else is looking at. And Bo Bentley is one of those guys. Unfortunately, Bo Bentley's now a top 5 quarterback in the country. So there's no hiding him anymore. But Oklahoma or LSU, I think, are going to be the two that people are really watching there. There's a kid out of Texas, for those that don't know, but he's really one of the only uncommitted top targets who are out there, just because those dominoes fall early, and it wasn't expected that one would fall early for LSU because they had Underwood up until the 11th hour. So you had to pivot. And look, I won't be shocked if they land Bo Bentley. That's great. That would be an elite quarterback.
If they land Bentley, it would be an elite quarterback. But one thing is for certain, LSU, for a solid year, had their future quarterback plan, and they don't now. And you're going to have to create a bridge after 2025 with Garrett Nussmeier to what could be an elite level quarterback year in Louisiana for 2027. And any one of those guys that you may land, if it's Elijah Haven or somebody else. But realistically, after Nussmeier, you got to figure it out for 2 years before you can get one of those 2027 guys ready to be a starter for you by their second year on campus. And that may even be ambitious. Again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because everybody's excited about Nussmeier coming back for a 5th year and what this is going to mean. And then you have the possibility of Michael Van Buren being your starter in 2026 and 2027. Or maybe not. Maybe it doesn't work out. But you'll cross that bridge when you get there. But you have got to give yourself options. And it may be an uncomfortable thing where you just have to go into the portal every year and get a quarterback, like we've seen Notre Dame do, like we've seen Kentucky do. That may be what LSU has to do until one of those 2027 guys lands on campus and you can grow and develop them into a multi-year starter and start to rebuild your depth at that position. But for now, Bo Bentley may be the best option for 2026 for LSU. As that develops, we'll certainly talk about it. We are inching closer, y'all, to the start of spring practice. I'm fired up for it. Every bit of media availability they give us, we'll be out there. We'll be giving you practice reports and everything you want to know. So, man, it's a great time to be here at Locked On LSU. The LSU baseball season is inching toward the start of conference play. A week from Friday, they'll be playing Missouri. Spring practice is going on. The LSU basketball team, this miserable season's about to end, but they're going to go ham in this spring portal window. And it's going to be fun to watch how all that transpires. So make sure you're here with us every single day. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Hey, how about for your second listen, you go catch up on Locked On College Basketball. You can find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, that's going to do it for us here. If you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. If you're listening on podcast, thank you so much for that as well. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.